is a tough outlook for farmers right now. Rough weather, low dairy, and crop prices.
Yeah, and our Danica Lewis is here now with the story of how this combination is taking its toll.
Yes,
Danica.
so farmers have little control no matter what, and they don't have a lot to lose and limited resources as well. And national data shows people working in agriculture have the highest suicide rates among any occupation. I went to Argyle to share how one farmer is using his story to hopefully save someone else's.
It's the birds chirping in the morning. It's the smell of the hay getting cut. It's, you know, drying corn. It's just the whole thing of being able to see what's going on every day in your life and knowing that you had a huge part in that.
There are brief moments for Jeff Ditzenberger and his neighbors.
I don't think there's any more noble of a profession out there.
When there's no thought of commodity prices, no concern over the forecast, no worries about planting or harvesting, just...
Sometimes you're just kind of at the end of a rope, and you know, you tie a knot and you try to hang on, and it's still not enough.
But once the reality of making a living sets in, so can the loneliness.
How do you start that conversation with somebody who's kind of maybe going through the exact same thing?
At 19, Jeff traded the only life he knew, since he could barely size up a corn stalk, to enlist in the Navy. He ended up in the Gulf.
Get over there, you see a few things, you hear a few things.
He came back to fields that felt as foreign as the front lines.
You suddenly become old enough to drink, and it's very accessible.
Soon, Jeff was drinking before, during, after work. His marriage wasn't working out either. The problems stacked up like hay bales.
I have a night that I drink very excessively. Had something that triggered me, and that was the night that I was gonna end it all.
So Jeff wrote a letter.
It's like drowning and knowing that there's absolutely nobody around. Worst feeling you've ever had in your entire life, and then multiply it by 10 times. That's a pretty realistic way to describe it.
He drove to an abandoned house, lit a match, and walked in.
People say that you know, that you get to that point and you have to be strong enough to commit suicide, and I disagree. I think you have to be strong enough to keep moving on.
Jeff was.
Check your fluids, check the tires.
After being sent to a psychiatric unit for treatment.
Well, there's your scream for help, but thankfully, you know, the scream was still there when it was all said and done.
The peaceful silence wasn't going to cut it anymore. No, Jeff had to cut through it.
I don't ever want to go back to that place, and I don't ever want anybody feeling that way.
He started talking with other farmers about his bipolar disorder diagnosis, his PTSD, what he lived through, or even just what he was struggling with that day.
Hey, you've got the same problems I do. Apparently, you know, the grass isn't necessarily greener on the other side. It's time to go back and fertilize our own ground.
More importantly,
why can't we ask the question about how somebody's doing?
Jeff started asking questions.
If you don't, I can just about guarantee at some point in time, the conversation you'll be having was with their family. And that's not a conversation any of us want to have.
And when it came time for him to tell his story, not surrounded by silos and soil,
and it hits me,
he flashed back to his Navy days.
We had to call a tugboat.
Not tractors, tugboats, small vessels that he trusted to lead him through rough waters.
You don't see them, but you know they're there because you're still moving. I think in life, everybody needs a tugboat. You need that person that you can call, that you say, hey, I'm in some treacherous waters. I need you to guide me, so on and so forth.
That's now the basis for a group he's starting, specifically for men, called Tugs, for talking, understanding, growing, and support.
I've had numerous opportunities for, you know, lots of things in life, and, you know, I'm glad I'm still here to do that.
Sure, farms can be secluded, and being a farmer can be lonely. But ask Jeff.
I tell people all the time, it's not a bad life, it's just a bad day.
It doesn't mean it has to be that way.
Are you willing to stop and have that conversation? And that's what we need to do.
So the Tug Support Group is not officially meeting yet, but Jeff is in the process of making it an official nonprofit aimed at helping men in particular talk openly about mental health and suicide awareness. If you or someone you know needs help, or you just want to start a conversation with your family on these or other mental health topics, we have plenty of resources posted on our Time to Talk page. Just go to channel3000.com/time4kids for that information. And there is specific information as well, Mark and Susan, about suicide prevention or help for farmers in particular on there if you know someone who's struggling.
He got the help and he wants to help others.
Very brave of Jeff to talk about that.
Yeah, he just figured, you know what? I'd rather be saying it here than at someone's funeral. That's kind of the conclusion he came to eventually, and it's been, I would say, after talking with him, I think it's therapeutic for him as well, talking about it and making sure that he just knows others hopefully talk about it as well.
You know, and farmers are supposed to be so strong and salt of the earth and we'll take care of everything.
But you never know what people are struggling with.
You never know.
You never know.
You never know, which is why we need to start that conversation.
Yeah, way to go, Jeff. Well done.
Thanks, Danica.
Yeah, of course.
Danica.